What mass issues of urban poor does RSL and Transform Kayole take up and campaign around? How does it help connect the issues of the urban poor to help build up the pro-people mass movement in Kenya?
Okay, if I may go first, there are several issues that face the urban poor in Nairobi and in the rest of the country. What are some of these issues? Number one is the question of unemployment, which plagues majority 70% of the Kenyan population is youthful or can be categorized as youthful. And of course, when we talk about the urban poor in Kenya, we're talking about majorly this section of the population. The median age in Kenya stands currently at 19 years. So you can see, so when you talk about the urban poor, we majorly are dwelling around the young people. Of course, the lack of employment means the inability of people to cater for their material needs. And what this means is abject poverty for majority of the population. This, of course, translates to very poor living conditions. Over 65% of the population in Nairobi alone live in informal settlements, over 65%. So you can see, when we talk about informal settlements or informalized settlements, we mean that housing is inadequate and people live in places that generally lack dignity. So there is poor sanitation, there is poor water connectivity, so there's an inability to access clean water. The access to electricity is not adequate. Access to social amenities generally is not adequate. In addition to that, there lacks proper or dignified spaces for recreation. So for children, there lacks adequate space to play and to, just move around and relax. So there is no space for that. And even the little spaces that exist in our urban centers are continuously getting grabbed by land cartels, politicians, and generally people with money, corrupt people with money who want to add onto whatever they have already. So in addition to this, of course, the lack of employment, the lack of economic opportunities, etc., means that criminal activity is high among the urban poor. And the way that the state responds to this is not by reducing the inequality, reducing the poverty, etc. How the state responds to this is violence upon majorly the youth, the young people in our urban centers. So there is high cases of extrajudicial executions. The police literally run the urban settlements as concentration camps because all they do is patrol. If they get a group of youth, just chilling, doing their thing, they regard them as criminals. They arrest them arbitrarily. Sometimes they shoot them without even, any provocation or without even them doing any crime. Fine, sometimes there might be some criminal activity, but instead of arresting them, they will just shoot them on the spot. So all these are issues that face the people. Of course, there's inadequate access to food as well, and the economic conditions are hard. There was a research also that was done recently by Food and Agriculture Organization, if I'm not wrong. I will confirm which source it was. But this showed that 80% of the children in the urban informal settlements in Nairobi and around the country, 80% of them lack proper nutrition and their growth is stunted. So we can see that access to food is also an issue. So we've been conducting campaigns around many of these issues. because these issues, of course, show the conditions that plague our people in the urban areas or around the urban poor in the country. And this, therefore, or other campaigns against or around these issues are what help us create this mass movement that enables us to mobilize the people towards genuine and towards, total liberation. Yeah, so I think I've just given an overview of what issues plague our people and the issues that face basically the urban poor, and why it becomes imperative for us, the RSL, Transform Kayole, and the organizations that work within our chapter are formed around and what we organize around.
Okay, so to avoid repeating, I will try to note some of the issues that Les missed. And one of them is like there is lack of investment in education and skill building. There is not enough resources put toward nurturing the skills or developing new skills that the youth are having now. So it keeps them in a state of like hopelessness because they don't have new skills or resources to help them earn a living. Another issue is the issue of like the recent climate issues. It has led to like demolition or eviction of some of the youth who are living along the riverbanks. The riverbanks flooded and the youths were evicted and some of them now are homeless. That's a very big issue. So adequate housing, evictions, because even cost of housing is very high here in the city, so many cannot afford like paying their rents. Are you together, comrades?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, continue. There is also the issue of gender-based violence, which is very rampant here in Nairobi. And it has led to issues like femicide, which has been very big issue. Even many people lost their lives, and even demonstrations have been held on this issue. So gender-based violence and femicide is another big issue that the young people are facing. Also mental health issues, a lot of suicide cases, a lot of young people going crazy, a lot of drug abuse due to the government allowing the peddlers or the drug barons to continue with their businesses in the poor communities. Alcohol is very cheap. Marijuana is available in every corner, illicit cigarettes, counterfeit cigarettes are being smoked here in the community. So even the alcohol is very counterfeit. So bad drugs that are there in the communities, which unfortunately lead to not only mental health, but other severe health issues, like liver failure and other causes. There is also cases of violence among the youths, gangs in my community, Gangs, they cause a lot of trouble, violence, killing one another due to small provocations. So a lot of young people are losing their lives through violence, both by the state and their peers. Also, the politicians are playing a big role in this because the desperation of the youths They're taking advantage of that and using them as goons in their campaign rallies, which leads to increased levels of crime. Whenever the politicians are around, the goons rob people, beat up the opponents. So it's very sad, Also, family not stable now, Young people in the urban places not be able to maintain their families, The women demand a lot, and the young men don't have employment to be able to cater for their spouses. And there is also marginalization or discrimination of the poor people, who mostly are seen as unlearned, rowdy, they are looked down upon. So whenever opportunities come, they are very much likely to be left out because of the issue of discrimination. They are seen as dirty, bad image to the public, so they cannot be involved. Some of them have dreadlocks, tattoos, their eyes red, they are not wearing the latest fashion, so they are discriminated upon. They don't have the latest smartphones. It leads to some kind of discrimination and classism, and where the youth who are much more educated, they tend to look down upon the youth who are in the trenches, And there is also the issue of divide and rule, the classic divide and rule that has always worked, where the people do not have a common vision, Some of the youth have been brainwashed and they cannot be able to work with their fellow youth, We lack purpose towards the government is using others as goons, others to fight against the other youth, So there is lack of unity among the youths, which is also. Thank you, comrades.
Yeah, thank you, comrades. How can we be more in solidarity internationally with the urban poor of Kenya?
I think foremost, it would be important to try and amplify the struggles of the people of Kenya, specifically of the urban poor of Kenya, as highlighted by organizations which are organizing around these issues, such as the Revolutionary Socialist League, such as Wahenga and Transform Kayole, and other organizations within the ILPS Kenya Chapter. So the campaigns that we try to organize around these issues that we have just mentioned, we can first of all try and amplify those campaigns in our own platforms internationally, so that more and more people will become aware of these issues and of these campaigns, and that will help build solidarity. There needs to be a convergence of our struggles and campaigns internationally, so that we create a common front, and we support each other, so that what the Kenyan people, the urban poor specifically, are struggling for or campaigning around in Kenya is also highlighted in all these other platforms of the organizations internationally. And the other thing is, of course, resources has always been a challenge. And also another way that organizations internationally can support is to also materially support some of these organizations here in Kenya that are struggling or that are organizing campaigns around all these issues that we've mentioned. Yes, so I think Comrade Samuel has highlighted a bit more of how this can be possible. So thank you.
Okay, comrade. I'll take on the question. So, as part of an international solidarity organization, as Lewis had earlier pointed out, a lot of like solidarity is the first thing that you do. The second thing is that you can ensure that they get access to more training opportunities, organizations to get access to training opportunities for campaigns, which can build our capacity and make our work, to be impactful. Also, we would like to get opportunities for exchange programs for the young people here to visit other ILPS organizations and learn from mostly the organizations that are very deep, to learn from their strategies, so that we can be better. Because I saw in other countries the ILPS is very strong, So exchange opportunities for the young to learn from other ILPS and partners, and also support, for our companies, financial support, some of our organizations are volunteer, and projects maybe to send them, we need a few resources here and there to keep them going. Like for the Transform Kayole now, most of the organizations are not there. So like now I'm speaking like mostly on behalf of Wahenga Youth, So if we have like resources to sustain their movements, their projects, and to keep them going, it will be a very good thing to do, motivation, and also just keeping them regularly updated, inviting them to events and other activities, solidarity whenever we need it. You can like raise alarm whenever we are like in trouble. So just basic tools for social organizing in the grassroots, basically. Now, and also extend it to the international level, because now ILPS is not only organizing the grassroots, but even at an international level. Thank you, comrades.
Yeah, how are the mass struggles of the urban poor and the Kenyan people related to the struggles of people around the world against imperialism?
They are connected because the understanding, and of course the reality is that these issues are not local but global. So if the urban poor in Kenya is facing an acute crisis in terms of healthcare, then it's because of the neoliberal system internationally, that has geared things to be that way. If we're facing shortages of food, malnutrition, if we're facing, the lack of clean water and sanitation and poor housing, etc., it's because of this international system. And in the course of last year's protests, in which we played a central role in organizing and participating in, it was good that majority of the urban poor here in Kenya showed that they have begun to understand the international nature of these issues, because people could for the first time show that they understood we lack food, or we are having a high increase in prices of food, because there's this international body called IMF, which is controlling our economic policies. And therefore people portrayed an understanding of this connection between global imperialism and the issues that are taking place locally. And this shows that in terms of political consciousness, there is a leap that we have begun to make And of course, this is largely due to the agitation, and political education that we've been doing on a mass scale. And so, yes, I think that shows the link and the connection, that global imperialism has to the conditions that face our people here. And therefore, the understanding that we must continue to campaign around these issues locally, but also connect them to the global struggle against capitalism and imperialism. Yes.
Okay. So at first, as you can see, most of the challenges the young people in Kenya are facing, the urban poor, are similar to others, urban poor people. So some are interlinked. So where the challenges are interlinked, we can share ideas on how to fight against imperialism. For example, issues like police brutality, climate issues, those other countries face discrimination, mental health issues, we can share how to they're mostly intelligent, but even poverty and employment, the most problems across many areas, but all. So we find the nexus, they connect and to address them, because not all the struggles are the same, because maybe challenges Cody faces in America are not what I face in Kenya. But we can find an intersection or a linkage, share how to figure imperialism, because if Kenya is imperialism, the country is not a socialist country, it's a capitalist. So it's just that we share what we go through, then find ways how we can address it at an international level. Yeah, because it's not like it cuts across like it's one single solution, but at the local level, it's easy to unite and fight against imperialism in Kenya, and also in Africa in general, because mostly even myself, I'm a Pan-African. That is one way to break the borders of imperialism that have strangled Africa for over a century. So it's just find the specific issues and breaking down them and addressing them, because imperialism is a monster. We cannot you get my point, comrade? Just identifying the issues that we share in common, then work together towards solving them. Yeah.